It's the Real Estate Podcast, brought to you by ANZ Home Loans for financial well-beings.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Breakfast as we cover the latest in property news. Of course, we're doing that 7 days a week and heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts and Amazon. Hey, hope you had a fantastic weekend, whatever you were doing, especially if it had anything to do with real estate. Today is Monday, April the 15th. Yes, another week is upon us. And today, like yesterday, we will be trying to make sense of the Sydney Bondi Westfields stabbing, where this horrific incident took place and claimed the lives of 6 people. You can't make sense of this sort of stuff. It does shake people to the core. And of course, we've seen this happen many, many times in the US. But when it happens in an Australian shopping mall, there is genuine shock and questions of just how could it happen. And then yesterday, Iran fires drones and ballistic missiles into Israel, which has many people now fearful of what is likely to happen next. Have we seen, with everything that has happened over the last 4 years, and that includes, of course, COVID, have we seen more world events in that time? I don't think so, not in our lifetime anyway. Well, let's try and lighten up the conversation, because today we are catching up with Daniel Alexander, the principal from LJ Hooker in Palm Beach on the southern Gold Coast in northern New South Wales. And good morning, Daniel. I can think of a lot worse places to be on a Monday morning than Palm Beach.
Hi, Craig. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's a beautiful day here too. The surf's nice and the weather's beautiful.
Well, it's always a bonus if that is the case. And I mentioned that you're there in Palm Beach, but you've got a few more offices spread about. So tell us where they are.
Yeah, we've got a few offices on the southern end of the Gold Coast, one in Burleigh Heads. We've got our office in Palm Beach, which was our first office that we opened some years ago. We've got one in Currumbin Waters and one down in Coolangatta.
So you're probably a good barometer to ask this question, because you've got these multiple offices, and that is that the southern Gold Coast typically has been quieter, but it's getting a little busier. More cranes, we know that, more cranes in the sky. So just how busy is it?
Yeah, definitely. I think, the southern end in history, it's been a little bit quieter than the rest of the Gold Coast, but it's not so much anymore, definitely. Growing popularity, lots of infrastructure growth, like you said, cranes in the sky, lots of newer units and high-rises and things being built, but still probably not as much supply as is needed, because we've still got a lot of people, lots more buyers than sellers at the moment.
Yeah, so demand is outstripping supply, and so big growth is happening. What about those investors? Are they still coming into your market? And is the southern Gold Coast a good, well, it's really the wrong question. I'm asking a principal, so I shouldn't really be asking you, is the Gold Coast a good place for investors? Because I know what the answer is going to be.
Yeah, I think you can probably guess my answer. It's definitely a solid place to invest. Like I said, we've got high demand for people buying properties, as well as high demand from a rental perspective generally. So much so that with that high demand comes price growth. So a lot of investors are still seeing really good returns on the Gold Coast. We're talking sort of around the 5% mark, which I don't think is, available across the country in all markets. But like I said, high demand, low supply. And to be honest, I can't see any immediate plans for that supply issue to be fixed anytime soon. So I do think it's a solid place to invest in real estate.
Now, we've spoken around the country to various principals. They have got varying stories to tell when it comes to investors. Some of them, there's different taxes, tax implications, which are seeing some investors dilute their property portfolio. What is happening on the southern Gold Coast with regard to all of that with investors? Are you seeing them sell up?
No, we're not. And I've heard that that's, in pockets around the country that investors are selling up because of changes around regulations. There's certainly some change happening in Queensland, and we're fortunate enough, I suppose, to be on the border. We deal in the southern end of Queensland as well as northern New South Wales. So there's some different changes happening in both of those states, as you're probably aware. We're also seeing some good incentives there for investors. So in northern New South Wales, actually, there's some really attractive options for first home buyers at the moment around stamp duty exemptions or discounts. So yeah, I think, from an investment point of view, it's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, so you kind of got your toe in both sort of states, haven't you? New South Wales and in Queensland, if I read that right.
Yes, correct. It's interesting. We've got a very different process and a different set of regulations for selling a house in Coolangatta, which is on the border on the Queensland side, and 50 metres down the road. It's a whole different process. Yeah, different set of regulations and requirements. So it keeps us on our toes.
And just sort of with that, sort of keeping you on your toes, I mean, how demanding is it? As I said, you've got these multiple offers, you're the principal there, you've got all these agents working for you. So just how challenging has that been in 2024, although I suspect it's been a lot easier this year than last?
Yeah, look, we all experienced an amazing market just after COVID sort of hit. That cooled off a bit, probably last 18 months or so, but it's definitely in the swing of things again this year. The forecast from what we can see is that interest rates have sort of leveled out, and there's talk of them, potentially coming down soon. That's only going to stimulate the market even more. We're all sort of looking forward to a good year.
Yes, that is what everybody is hoping for, a fantastic 2024. We're talking to Daniel Alexander. He is the principal from LJ Hooker there in Palm Beach. We'll come back after this.
We are more than just a real estate podcast. We cover a multitude of subjects, including property data, current buyer-seller sentiment, and the mood of the market. Follow each week all of the main talking points and know your property.
Hey, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about some of the regional suburbs and the value for money from Asti, who sort of broke all of that down for us. Now, that was the first half. The second half, she is back with us this week to break down some other areas. So if you are a first home buyer, that is coming up this week. Also, the RBA last met with their decision to not change the cash rate. That happened on March the 19th, which by my calculations means that we have another decision coming up on May the 7th of next month, which will be 7 weeks from the last one. Dominique in Brisbane, thank you for your email. You asked the simple question, what is likely to happen next with the RBA and the cash rate? Thank you for your email. I think talking on behalf of everybody, failing something drastically happening, it's unlikely to change. That seems to be the obvious thinking at this stage, as we really do look for that period of stability for mortgage holders. But thank you for getting in touch. And just a reminder, our email is myrealestatepodcast@gmail.com.
Navigate the world of real estate like a pro, with expert insights, opinions and trends to up your game and knowledge when buying your next property.
Now, here's a question. I don't think I've asked this one before, but I guess there will be a number of people that are living outside of both states, particularly Queensland, and they might ask, what is the most difference between the southern Gold Coast and the northern Gold Coast? So if somebody was asking that question, how could you break that down in terms of real estate and opportunities?
Tongue in cheek, I can just say the southern Gold Coast is way better. No, it's probably not as busy. In the northern end, it's very busy. You've sort of got more activity happening. But the southern Gold Coast is definitely growing. Like I said, lots of infrastructure growth. We've had a real influx over the last few years around new culture popping up. So, restaurants and cafes and, lots of options for entertainment and that sort of thing. Education, we've got universities on the southern end now. We've got the international airport on the southern end. There's more being put into transport. So it's really a growing area. I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier, but there's predicted population growth from about 600,000 on the Gold Coast now. In, I think it's 2046, they're predicting there'll be 1 million people. So there's lots of things happening. And it's just a really nice place to be. It's a little bit quieter than the northern end, but, still plenty of action.
Yeah, you mentioned the airport, and if you sort of time it from the airport in terms of driving south, how much of a bonus has that airport been for the southern Gold Coast? I would think quite dramatic, because if you're living, and I remember this when I used to live in Southport in the northern end, it would sort of take me forever to get to the airport if the traffic was busy.
Absolutely. And I actually used to work with the airport before my time in real estate. And, we talked about it being the gateway to the Gold Coast and huge factor for our tourism industry. They pride themselves on being able to jump on a plane and be in Sydney within, an hour and a half or 2 hours as opposed to other areas. We're seeing a lot of people moving to the Gold Coast, I think, for lifestyle. There's a lot of relative affordability here still. So you can still buy property here that's, superior from a lifestyle point of view than you would get in one of the major capital cities, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane even. So yeah, there's a lot of investment coming from interstate and also internationally.
And just lastly, before I let you go, because you're at the southern end, there are some more of these opportunities for larger blocks as opposed to the northern end. So if somebody's outside of the state and thinking, well, I'd like a little bit of land, what sort of opportunities are there, and how big can you go in the southern Gold Coast?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. We've got some really beautiful suburbs west from the highway, Currumbin Valley, Talabudra, really increased in popularity, particularly while COVID was happening and people were locked in their properties down south. So we saw a lot of people coming up here to buy some land. You can get, good sized blocks with multiple acres for, not too far over $1 million, right up to, some expensive stuff selling in the $10 million range. Generally speaking, you can still get really good value for money there, and you're only 10 minutes to the beach.
So when you say multiple acres for around $1 million, what would an acre cost you in terms of living on the southern Gold Coast? So, 1 acre, that's a bit of property.
It is, yeah. And look, it depends, like any property or any market. It depends on the property you're getting. But and look, prices are going up. They have gone up significantly. I think some of our valley suburbs were some of the biggest price growth suburbs in the country over the last few years. But yeah, you'll get a basic house out in the valley there for probably not under $1 million now, but under $2 million, you could probably pick something up still.
Gee, that's not bad in terms of today's climate, so I have learnt something this morning. Well, I'll let you get on with your busy day. No doubt plenty of people to see and talk to. Daniel, thanks for coming on to the Real Estate Breakfast this morning. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Craig. Thanks for having me.
Don't navigate the real estate market alone. Let us help guide you in the world of real estate every day. Make better informed decisions with the latest news and insights.
When the previous owners passed away, they had no relatives and they passed it on to some members of their church. I think predominantly with this Facebook post that people did with the abandoned houses, people have gone out there to investigate because it's just a fascinating property and people just love the story and want to know, they want to see it with their own eyes.
So I thought it would be good to actually introduce Robert in to discuss the legalities of fractional ownership, to highlight any questions that the listeners might have.
Fractional ownership breaks down that co-ownership even further. So rather than you and some friends purchasing a property, you don't even need to know the other people. You can come in and you can take 10%, 5% of a property.
So generally on a 350k, you're looking at anywhere between 600 and 800 square metres. It could be either a weatherboard or brick home, and usually does need some love and attention. Not generally needing extensive, however, there are always those ones out there.
We connect you to the best real estate information across Australia. The Real Estate Podcast.